There is a very specific kind of silence the night before an exam. The notes are closed, the material is covered, more or less, and yet the mind doesn't rest. Questions appear. What if I forget everything? What if I'm not ready? What if this goes badly? Tonight on St. John On Air, I want to talk about that space, the space before exams, where stress and anxiety grow louder than our preparation. Feeling stress before an exam is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that something matters. Endocrinologist Hans Selye described stress as the body's natural response to demands placed upon it. In many situations, stress can be helpful. It sharpens attention and prepares us to act. But when the demand feels too high or too important, that response can shift into anxiety. And anxiety doesn't stay in the background, it begins to shape how we think, feel, and perform. So, where does exam anxiety come from? For one, it's the brain's rapid threat response. Neuroscientist Joseph Lador explains that brain systems involved in detecting threat can activate very quickly. An exam can begin to feel like more than a test. It can feel like a threat to our future, our identity, our sense of worth. And the body responds accordingly. Faster heartbeat, slower breathing, muscle tension. Secondly, there is pressure and meaning. Psychologist Richard Lazarus showed that stress depends largely on how we interpret a situation. If we believe this is too much for me or this defines my future, stress intensifies. Exams often carry exactly that meaning. Thirdly, there is fear of failure, connected to identity. Psychologist Dweck explains that when performance becomes tied to identity, mistakes feel personal. It's no longer I might not do well, it becomes I'm not good enough, and that shift can significantly increase anxiety. I remember one of my students, 18 years of age, preparing for important exams. On paper, everything looked good, prepared, capable, responsible. But as the exams approached, something changed. Doubt began to grow. Material that had been understood suddenly felt uncertain. Simple questions felt overwhelming. Sleep became irregular, focus dropped. What stood out most was this: the student didn't lack knowledge. They lacked a sense of safety in their own ability. The pressure had become louder than the preparation. So, how does anxiety affect the mind? Attention may become biased toward threat. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky explains that stress can bias attention toward potential threats. Instead of noticing what you know, your mind focuses on what you might forget. Anxiety amplifies emotional responses. Small doubts feel larger, uncertainty feels heavier. Psychiatrist Aaron Beck showed that anxious thinking often involves exaggerated negative predictions. Cognitive scientist Sian Beilock has shown that pressure and anxiety can reduce working memory capacity. This means you may know the material, but anxiety makes it harder to access it. So, how to deal with exam anxiety? Let's move gently towards what helps. First of all, normalize the stress response. Understanding that stress is natural reduces fear of the feeling itself. Psychologist Kelly McGonigal explains that interpreting stress as a sign of readiness can support better performance. Instead of thinking, I'm panicking, try, my body is preparing me. Secondly, try to regulate the body first. Before calming the mind, calm the body. Slow breathing, long exhale. Psychiatrist Basil von der Kolk emphasizes that regulating the body can support emotional regulation. Thirdly, reduce the scope. Instead of thinking about the entire exam, focus on the next question. Psychologist Teresa Amabile found that small progress reduces stress and builds momentum. Next, challenge catastrophic thoughts. When the mind says, if I fail, everything is ruined, pause and ask, is that really true? Cognitive therapy research from Aaron Beck shows that questioning thoughts reduces their intensity. And finally, build a sense of support. What helped my student most wasn't more studying, it was structure, reassurance, breaking tasks into manageable parts, and knowing they were not alone. Support changes how pressure feels. So, when should we seek help? Sometimes anxiety becomes too intense to manage alone. That's when reaching out matters. Psychologist Martin Seligman emphasizes that well-being is strongly supported by connection. Teachers, parents, counselors, friends. Speaking about stress often reduces its weight. Exams measure knowledge, but they do not measure your worth. Stress may appear before important moments. That is natural. But stress does not define your ability, and anxiety does not erase what you know. Sometimes the most important preparation is not more studying, but learning how to stay steady where pressure rises. Good night and good luck, my friend.